Abandoned multi-million naira federal power plant in Ondo State razed to the ground. Civil Defense Corps personnel can no longer brandish firearms in public or at party venues. On the international scene, United Arab Emirates confirms first cases of new coronavirus as China develops new vaccine. And in sport, NFF, Nike to unveil new Super Eagles jersey.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Fire has basically razed an abandoned multi-million naira federal government power plant in Ondo State. Residents of Okeagbe in Akoko Northwest local government area of Ondo say they are distressed over the inferno that consumed the facility, which was supposed to improve power supply in the Ondo North Senatorial District, extending to parts of Ekiti and Kogi State. The facility that was constructed during the Goodluck Jonathan administration was never used. Eyewitnesses say Ondo State Fire Service was absent at the scene to put out the blaze that ultimately consumed the entire power plant. Cause of the fire is yet unknown, but eyewitnesses say it might have been caused by bush burning in the area. Minister of Information Lai Mohammed has declared that the federal government is winning the war against corruption in the country. He was responding to a report by Transparency International that ranked Nigeria 146 out of 180 countries on its corruption index. The minister said in a speech in London on Tuesday, the federal government was fighting against corruption in order to see to the development of the country, not to impress any organization. But many are asking questions about Nigeria's score of only 26 points out of a possible 100 in the Transparency International's corruption index. The minister says, quote, "We have put in place policies and legislation that have tamed the monster called corruption," end quote. He said the government will continue to fight corruption. Mohammed said, quote, "We know we are winning the war," end quote. A Chinese supermarket in the Federal Capital Territory was sealed off on Tuesday for selling contraband and expired food items. Director General of the Federation Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, Babatunde Irukera, said that the move was to seal off Panda supermarkets in Jabi was to serve as a deterrent to others and to safeguard the lives of citizens. The DG said the government cannot take chances with the sale of expired and contraband items, especially items coming from Asian countries, at this time when coronavirus is ravaging Asia. Irukera said some of the products have developed mold even in the refrigerator. He also said the supermarket had a large cold room that contained expired products. Some of the items listed by the Director General include pork, rice, mushrooms, chicken, gizzard, and others. He also charged that the supermarket had used toilets to store some of the food items. The Consumer Protection team also seized expired food items at the Gwarimpa branch of the same supermarket. Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps, NSCDC, has banned public display of firearms by the Corps' Armed Squad. The action followed the death of Action Alliance chieftain in Imo State, Ndubuisi Emenike, in an accidental discharge by an NSCDC operative. Commander General of the Corps, Abdullahi Gana Muhammadu, made this announcement on Tuesday while paying a condolence visit to Imo State former Governor Senator Rochas Okorocha on Emenike's death. Muhammadu said he gave the order to prevent future occurrences of such accidents. He said any personnel caught displaying or brandishing firearms in whatever circumstances or during any celebration risk dismissal. The order also makes it an offense for officials bearing arms to stay within the immediate perimeters of any occasion. Such officials are now to keep a 50-meter distance away from events or party venues. It has always been said that Nigerians love to travel. The country's travel industry rakes in billions of naira annually. But travel agents are now complaining of slowing business that has negatively affected their bottom line. It's not because Nigerians don't want to travel. Trips have been curtailed because of the weakness of the Nigerian passport. Kelechi Mekalam explains.
Travel agent and consultant Fumi Taiwo has spent over a decade providing services for a wide range of customers across the country. With a clientele base of nearly 2,000, her services range from flight ticketing to visa assistance and tour services. But business has been on a decline for the past 1 year. Travel requests have cut by about 30%.
It has reduced our income. Sales has dropped. You don't get them coming like they used to. You understand? And when you have drop in sales, it means you have less income. And we've got staff to pay, bills, to cover up, to handle, this, I think it's the major part. We are not finding it funny.
In the last decade, the Nigerian passport has recorded a significant drop. On the Henley Passports Index ranking of 2020, it occupies the 95th position. It's considered one of the world's weakest passports, behind African countries like Angola, Egypt, Cameroon and Libya, which tied at 93rd. And experts say the ranking would negatively impact foreign business prospects.
That country where everybody is running away from, as an investor, you must come to understand that something is wrong, something is not going on well. Because if things are going on well, the citizens will have loved to stay to even invest in their country. So that makes an investor to be wary. It raises a red flag. The whole thing reflects in that index, and so it scares away the investor.
Nigerians have been linked with irregular migration, having one of the highest no-return ratings. That is credited to the poor standard of living in the country, as many seek greener pastures abroad, a trend the government is looking to change.
Are taking all the measures possible to address the situation. And we understand that there are certain steps, conditions that we are responsible for addressing greater economic prosperity in our country, education, vocational training, and a lot of these we are undertaking in the framework of our economic growth and recovery.
The Nigerian government is looking to boost its economy and improve the living standard of citizens. Two major factors, experts say, are capable of improving the passport ranking in subsequent years.
Coming up, African stories. African countries gear up for coronavirus. And later, international news. United Arab Emirates reports first cases of coronavirus. Welcome back. This is ANN News. Now to African stories. The new coronavirus that has claimed many lives in China and sickened thousands has changed health priorities in many countries. African nations have begun preventive measures against the virus, and Tunisia is taking such precautionary measures. Adnin Chawochi tells us more.
Travelers suspected of being infected will be placed in an equipped, isolated room to undergo necessary analysis in a laboratory set up by the Ministry of Health.
The necessary tests are first carried out on the suspects in an isolated hall inside the Tunis Carthage airport. If the test results are positive, patients will be taken by ambulance to the isolation units at the hospital.
The airport medical teams and civil aviation officials have been informed of the lists of people coming from China so that they can take the necessary preventive measures.
The temperature sensors for passengers installed at Tunis Carthage Airport will help identify people coming from China suspected of having contracted the coronavirus. We have also a list of travelers to China and other countries where people were infected.
Health authorities stress that efforts are being made to monitor the epidemiological situation related to the coronavirus through the National Observatory for New and Emerging Diseases, the Strategic Center for Health Operations, and the National Laboratory.
The World Health Organization has not yet declared the coronavirus a global emergency and has not recommended any travel or trade restrictions. We are ready to intervene if the situation changes.
The Ministry of Health will remain in touch with people arriving from China for 12 days after their arrival to check their health condition. The minister affirmed her service's ability to provide isolation units in hospitals to separate patients and to protect medical personnel working there in case of an emergency. Tunisian health authorities are distributing brochures and leaflets to travelers from all airports, ports and border crossings, containing the necessary information, recommendations and figures as part of its coronavirus prevention plan.
The concerns are great as well in South Africa, but officials are worried of the economic impact of such a spread into the country. But they say they are ready if the disease should spread to Africa's coast. There has been no reported case of the disease in anywhere in Africa, but more than 100 persons have died from it in China. To ensure it won't be caught unprepared, South Africa has begun preparations, especially at Africa's busiest airport, Johannesburg's Oliver Tambo International Airport, that received more than 20 million travelers in 2018. Direct flights between South Africa and China take off from Johannesburg Airport. The news of the coronavirus outbreak has affected the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, where stocks have slumped. The decline is directly tied to China's trade importance to South Africa, of whom it is the biggest trading partner. Sudan's West Darfur province has faced protracted tribal clashes that have now forced more than 11,000 persons to flee into neighboring Chad in the last month. United Nations Refugee Agency said on Tuesday clashes between Arabs and non-Arabs erupted late in December in Janina town, 12 miles from the border with Chad. At least 36 persons, including women and children, were killed and many wounded. UNHCR says the clashes have displaced an estimated 46,000 inside the country. The agency says many of them were already internally displaced persons. The attacks in West Darfur have caused people to turn schools, mosques and other buildings in Janina into temporary refuge. Sudan's transitional government is facing a challenge to end rebellions that have plagued the country for decades in areas like Darfur. Kenya's President Uhuru Kenyatta has presided over the opening of a $50 million cement factory in Nakuru, 150 kilometers west of the capital, Nairobi. The Simba Cement Factory that will create 700 direct jobs is set to boost the construction sector by enhancing availability of cement at affordable prices. The factory is still being expanded and will employ a further 300 Kenyans by June this year, bringing the total direct jobs created to 1,000. Kenyatta urged companies involved in the construction industry to leverage on the low cement prices offered by the processor to expand their enterprise.
I urge all players, especially our small players, to provide other inputs required in road and building construction, to similarly make investments in this and other counties, thereby taking advantage of what this plant offers. The National Cement Company brings this vital building commodity closer to the people in this part of the country and beyond as we head towards Lake Victoria. This will reduce the cost of the cement in helping bring down the cost of housing and supporting our affordable housing agenda.
When we return, international news. United Arab Emirates reports first cases of coronavirus. And later, sports. NFF Nike to unveil new Super Eagles jersey. Welcome back. This is ANN News. Down to international stories. The United Arab Emirates has confirmed the first cases of coronavirus. The country's state-run news agency made the announcement saying doctors are currently treating a family that had just arrived from a city at the epicenter of the outbreak. The agency did not give the number of those afflicted by the virus. The UAE is a federation of 7 sheikdoms on the Arabian Peninsula that includes Dubai and Abu Dhabi. It is home to long-haul carriers Emirates and Etihad airports and is a hub for global air travel. Authorities at Abu Dhabi's airport and Dubai International Airport continue to screen passengers and crew from incoming China flights. Dubai International Airport is the world's busiest for international trade. Emirati officials say they are taking all necessary precautions in accordance with scientific recommendations, conditions and standards approved by the World Health Organization. Chinese Center for Disease Control and Prevention has started developing vaccines against the new coronavirus. Head of the National Institute for Viral Disease Control and Prevention, Chu Wenbo, says the CDC has isolated the virus and currently identifying seed strain. Wenbo says the agency is also screening drugs targeting pneumonia caused by coronavirus. Liu Yong reports.
It's a race against time. On Monday, scientists in eastern China's Zhejiang province successfully isolated 2 high-quality coronavirus strains, thus paving the way for research and development of vaccines, antiviral medicines, and rapid test kits. Separating the virus allows researchers to better understand it and its behavior.
At this time, rapid diagnostic reagents need to be developed. The current test takes 3 hours, but if a new model is successfully developed, scientists will be able to obtain a result in 15 to 30 minutes.
According to a Reuters report, with the Wuhan virus genetic code in hand, the newly organized vaccine research group in the U.S. will likely be testing the first of a number of potential experimental vaccines against the new SARS-like coronavirus in just 3 months. At the University of Queensland in Australia, scientists say they're working on what they describe as a molecular clamp vaccine approach.
Always running behind the virus. And so what we need to change this. We need to have these inhibitors developed into drugs even before the outbreaks. And that's why we chose this strategy of broad-spectrum antivirals, including the enterovirus family.
Despite the breakthrough, the toughest task remains identifying the source of the novel coronavirus. China has set up a national research team that will mainly focus on critical care, traditional Chinese medicine, and vaccine development. Experts point out that at the moment, the most effective way is to use public health measures to prevent and control the spread of the disease. Even if development of the vaccine is accelerated, the clinical trial and approval process will take a long time, and the vaccines take even longer to reach the market.
Multinational companies have been forced to suspend travel, stop production, and shut stores across China as corporate fallout deepens from the outbreak of coronavirus. British Airways has cancelled all flights to and from the country for the next few days. Car maker Toyota has also suspended production at 4 auto plants, and Starbucks has closed 2,000 of its Chinese outlets. The new coronavirus that originated in the Chinese city of Wuhan has killed more than 100 persons in China and has spread across the world. Chicago-based United Airlines says it was suspending 24 U.S. flights to Beijing, Hong Kong and Shanghai. Airlines were not the only companies imposing restrictions, as Facebook became the first significant U.S. company to announce a travel suspension after the U.S. government's warning. It says it has asked employees to halt non-essential travel to mainland China and to work from home if they were already in China. Europe's biggest bank, HSBC Holdings, banned all staff travel to Chinese-ruled Hong Kong for 2 weeks and mainland China until further notice. Israel's Attorney General has filed a formal indictment in court against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu after the Prime Minister withdrew a request for parliamentary immunity from prosecution on charges of bribery, fraud and breach of trust in connection with 3 separate cases. The Israeli parliament was due to open a debate on the immunity request on Tuesday, but Netanyahu said it would not have received a fair hearing. Netanyahu has always criticized opponents for going ahead with a debate when U.S. President Donald Trump was due to unveil his long-awaited Middle East peace plan. Israel's longest-serving prime minister is accused of accepting gifts from wealthy businessmen and dispensing favors to try to get more positive press coverage. But the prime minister says is the victim of a politically motivated witch hunt. Netanyahu has denied any wrongdoing. Up next, sports. Nigeria Football Federation, Nike, to unveil new Super Eagles jersey. Please stay with us. Welcome back. This is ANN News and Sport. The Nigeria Football Federation and sportswear giant Nike are ready to unveil Super Eagles new jerseys ahead of their 2021 Africa Cup of Nations Match Day 3 home qualifying encounter against Sierra Leone. Nike extended their deal with the NFF in 2018 and are eager to design another set of jerseys for the three-time African champions. NFF President Amaju Pinnick says the new jerseys will be unveiled in London and Nigeria after same has been done in New York. Liverpool former forward Peter Crouch has apologized to Mikel Obi over a 13-year altercation between the pair. Crouch admitted that his horrendous tackle on Mikel in 2007 in the semi-final of the Carling Cup, now known as Carabao Cup, was the worst that he has ever made in his career. The former England international accused Mikel of diving and provoking the tackle after the game. That is ANN News this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on these and other breaking stories, visit our website, annafrica.news. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Have a pleasant evening.